2 National Guard soldiers are in critical condition after being shot in Washington, D.C., less than 2 blocks from the White House, in what local officials describe as a targeted shooting. Authorities say the attack occurred on Wednesday afternoon near the busy intersection of 17th and I Streets, close to the Farragut Square metro station. The soldiers, both members of the West Virginia National Guard, were on a routine high-visibility patrol in an area filled with office workers and heavy foot traffic. According to Metropolitan Police and federal officials, a lone suspect approached the 2 service members, came around a corner and opened fire without warning. Members of the National Guard who were stationed nearby heard the gunshots and reacted immediately. Police say those Guard members intervened, tackled the suspect to the ground and restrained him until law enforcement arrived on scene within moments. Law enforcement sources later confirmed that the suspect had been shot 4 times during the confrontation. President Donald Trump, who was in Florida at the time of the attack, identified the alleged gunman as an Afghan national who entered the United States in September 2021. The Department of Homeland Security later named the suspect as Rahmanullah Lakanwal and described him as a criminal alien from Afghanistan. Officials have not clarified his exact immigration status. Tens of thousands of Afghan nationals entered the United States following the 2021 US withdrawal from Afghanistan under an emergency admissions program established by the previous administration. President Trump vowed that his administration would ensure the suspect pays the steepest possible price for what he called an act of evil, an act of hatred, and an act of terror. In a late-night address, he called for a full re-examination of all Afghan nationals who entered the country under special protections. Shortly afterward, US Citizenship and Immigration Services announced it had temporarily halted processing of Afghan immigration requests while vetting procedures undergo review.
As President of the United States, I am determined to ensure that the animal who perpetrated this atrocity pays the steepest possible price. I can report tonight that based on the best available information, the Department of Homeland Security is confident that the suspect in custody is a foreigner who entered our country from Afghanistan, a hellhole on earth. He was flown in by the Biden administration in September 2021 on those infamous flights that everybody was talking about. Nobody knew who was coming in. Nobody knew anything about it. His status was extended under legislation signed by President Biden, a disastrous president, the worst in the history of our country. This attack underscores the single greatest national security threat facing our nation.
FBI Director Kash Patel, whose agency is leading the investigation, said the 2 soldiers were brazenly attacked in what he called a horrendous act of violence. Investigators have not determined a motive, and they say the suspect has not cooperated with questioning. Authorities have also not released details about the weapon used in the shooting.
We're here to brief you on the tragic events that happened today at approximately 2:15 local time in Washington, D.C., where 2 of our brave members of the National Guard and the Department of War were brazenly attacked in a horrendous act of violence. They were shot. They're in critical condition. As you can see behind me, we have assembled the full force of both the federal and state and local law enforcement agencies to bring bear all of our resources to make sure we find the perpetrators responsible for this heinous act. And make no mistake, they will be brought to justice.
Metropolitan Police Assistant Chief Jeff Carroll said the soldiers were effectively ambushed, describing how the suspect immediately started firing a firearm as soon as he appeared. Officers arriving on scene found shattered glass from a bus stop, police vehicles blocking the area, and National Guard members securing the perimeter. A large police and security presence remained in place for hours as federal and local agencies conducted interviews and gathered evidence. Following the attack, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the president had ordered 500 more National Guard members to Washington. he stated that security operations in the capital would continue to be strengthened and that federal authorities were working closely with DC officials to assess ongoing risks.
Myself and my team were notified that 2 National Guardsmen had been shot in Washington, D.C., critically wounded. The shooter shot in a cowardly, dastardly act targeting the best of America, heroes willing to serve in Washington, D.C., serve for people they don't know and they've never met because they love their country and their capital and their community. They were willing to do dangerous things others were not because they love their fellow Americans. Someone decided to turn that into targeting National Guardsmen. That will only stiffen our resolve. We will never back down. We will secure our capital, we will secure our cities. In fact, this happened just steps away from the White House. It will not stand. And that's why President Trump has asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army to the National Guard, to add 500 additional troops, National Guardsmen, to Washington, D.C. This will only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we make Washington, D.C. safe and beautiful.
Vice President J.D. Vance, who was speaking to troops in Kentucky at the time of the incident, called on Americans to pray for the wounded soldiers and their families. Federal agencies, including the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and U.S. Secret Service, continue to coordinate the investigation. Officials say updates will be released once the suspect's condition stabilizes and more information becomes available regarding motive, background, and any possible connections to other individuals or groups.
First of all, I want everybody who's a person of faith to say a prayer for those 2 National Guardsmen that they're able to spend Thanksgiving with their families instead of losing their lives, because I understand they're still in pretty tough condition. But I think it's a somber reminder that soldiers, whether they're active duty, reserve, or National Guard, our soldiers are the sword and the shield of the United States of America. And as a person who goes into work every single day in that building and knows that there are a lot of people who wear the uniform of the United States Army, let me just say very personally, thank them for what they're doing. We're grateful to them, and we're praying that they're going to be safe and they're going to spend Thanksgiving with their families. God bless them.
As of now, the 2 National Guard members remain hospitalized in critical condition. Authorities have not released their names. The shooting has prompted renewed scrutiny of security measures in the federal district and will likely remain a major point of discussion among lawmakers, law enforcement agencies, and the public in the coming days.